So hi guys, welcome to a new video. This is my full review of what is going to be the best mid-range smartphone of the year in my opinion. That's the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. So I hope you like the video. Please like, comment and subscribe. So this is the design of the smartphone. So you can see we've got a nice AMOLED panel on the front. It's fairly bright. You've got Nothing OS 3 on this phone. You also have your speaker at the bottom, your second loudspeaker at the top in with the earpiece, as well as too many buttons in too many different places in my opinion. You've got the essentials key here that you can't remap to do other functions. You have to use their AI stuff that, to be honest with you, I don't bother with. I don't really use it. I don't find it that helpful. And you can't remap it, unfortunately. You've also got the unlock and lock button as well as the power button, and then you've also got on this side your volume up and volume down button, and you'll see how low these buttons are positioned. I don't like that. So the thing to notice straight away on this phone is that it's really boxy, so it's not super comfortable. I much prefer curved edge smartphones to find it much more comfortable to hold. You'll also see that the frame here is like some sort of cheap plastic. It actually does feel extremely plasticky and cheap, as well as this here. You can see it kind of just doesn't work for me. I love the fact they finally made the back panel glass as well as the front. It's just such a shame and such a missed opportunity that the side rails and that back ring there couldn't be made out of metal, because it would really elevate to the experience of this phone. And you know, it being a design-led phone, I would have liked to see that here. I know the price point of this phone is around 450 English pounds, so it does have some great specs for the price. But in terms of design, that's how I feel about it. So the battery on this device is a 5000 milliamp cell, powered with that quite efficient Snapdragon processor. You do find that battery life on this is actually pretty good. It's not amazing, but it is pretty good. Actually, I don't find the battery life as good as the Honor 400 Pro. I do seem to get, you know, a couple more hours screen on time out of that device, and real world usage, that phone will last me all day. Well, this will probably die around the 6 to 7 PM mark if you are quite a heavy user. No wireless charging either, unfortunately, where the Honor 400 Pro does come with wireless charging. Charging speeds are 65 watt, I believe, which is, you know, it's okay. It's not blazing fast anymore, but it does the job, where the Honor will charge a lot quicker. So let's talk about performance on this phone. Well, the performance is, I'll be honest, a disappointment. I think it is underpowered. Nothing has done a good job of optimizing their launcher and their system for it. You know, it feels fairly snappy, but if we go into the camera app, you can kind of see it's kind of slow to respond. It's just a bit janky. Look, it's really slow to respond, and you do notice it. As soon as you do anything more than basic tasks, it really does start to feel a bit sluggish, and it definitely feels underpowered. So the stereo speakers on this device are pretty good for a budget smartphone. You know, not going to be flagship levels like the Honor Magic 7 Pro, which has the best stereo speakers in any smartphone in my opinion, but they do sound pretty good. So I'll give you a sample here. Again, you can't really hear that well, you know, with a sample, but I'm just going to put the phone close to the microphone so you can hear. Again, I can't play too much because of copyright on that. But yeah, they sound pretty good. Bass is, you know, pretty non-existent after a quarter of the way volume. But it's just a fair amount of loudness, and if you are just going to watch a video here and there, then obviously they are going to do the job. But yeah, not the best stereo speakers in the world, not the worst. Probably on par with the Honor 400 Pro. And again, that. So this time we are actually filming on a different type of camera. We are using the DJI Action 4. I actually really like this camera. We've also got an external mic plugged into it for the first time. It took me a while to work out how to get this rigged up properly, but I'm hoping the quality and the audio is quite good. So let me know what you think to the quality below. Let's talk about these cameras. So you've got a 50 megapixel main camera, and you've got a 50 megapixel periscope camera, which for me is the star of the show here. You've also got quite a disappointing 8 megapixel ultra wide, but I don't really use that anyway. So it's not too important to me for photography, and it gets the job done if you need it the most. So this is audio using the mics of the Nothing Phone 3A Pro on its 50 megapixel front facing camera. So in my testing, I actually find this camera absolutely fine, does the job perfectly well. Highlights are quite contained, contrast is nice and natural, sharpness isn't overdone, stabilisation is actually pretty good. So overall really satisfied with this camera, and it's going to do the job for exactly what you need it to do. Microphones are also acceptable, if not outstanding. So this is video on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro with its main camera at 4K 30 frames per second. Now you might notice I haven't started this video on the ultra wide camera, and that's because quite simply you can't film at 4K 30 frames per second with the ultra wide. It's not quite up to the job. So it's really disappointing to see that. But overall the video footage on the main camera is perfectly acceptable, and it has received a few updates that do make it a lot better. You can see it's not the smoothest pan, you do get a few micro jitters, but colours seem pretty nice, sharpness is pretty good. The focus of that main camera can struggle sometimes as well, and you can find a bit of subject hunting. But let's change to this telephoto lens now. So you can see stabilisation on the telephoto lens is pretty good at this price point, can't complain. Colours remain consistent. Sharpness, again, slightly sharpened up, but not too bad. And at launch, this camera couldn't do 4K 30 frames per second, but it now can in the update. But overall, really solid job from this telephoto lens. You can see again, you've really got consistency in the highlights, the contrast. The shadows are not lifted too much on video, which is quite a different story compared to photos. Also got close focusing for the telephoto, so you can see we can actually get pretty close to get some macro-like video. We can do a nice pan round here. Slight bit of noise creeping in there, but that's nice and natural and it's not overdone. You also digitally crop in here, so we can go to 6x zoom now with that tele lens, and that's an in-sensor crop to try and give some good results. If we go back to the main sensor, let's just see how close we can get with the focus. And again, we do a nice pan here. You can see you can get some fairly cinematic shots. The video mode, quite basic when you're filming. You can adjust the zoom in digitally between the 1x main sensor and the 3x telephoto sensor. You've got the stop recording button, the pause button, and grab a photo while you're shooting, as well as a timer at the top. But there's no histogram options or anything like that. Again, we're going to go back to the 3x lens now. So again, 3.7x here. Quite consistent around the edges of the subject you're trying to shoot with. So you that full 6x zoom now. Stabilisation is pretty good. It's back to that 1x sensor. And that's the video of the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. So this is the rear cameras, and this is the main camera at 1x zoom, shooting in 4K at 30 frames per second. A little bit stuttery, but it's not too bad. You can see not much background blur here. That sensor size is not super big, 1/1.56 inch, so it's fairly decent, but it's not huge. You can't actually use the ultra wide lens at 4K, unfortunately, because it's so poor. And we'll come on to that later in my photo comparison, mainly because that ultra wide camera is really not very good. However, the telephoto camera is pretty good. I mean, this is now 3x zoom, and you can see actually fairly steady as well. And in video, it does a nice job. Quite sharp, but not over sharpened. We do get a bit of natural depth of field here as well. And again, it does have that macro mode, so let's see how this goes in video. Do we drop the focus? You can see we can hold on to the focus quite hard to keep the focus locked. And the exposure changes also do happen throughout all the cameras on video. But overall, it's actually not a bad job, especially at this price point. You really can't complain. We're going to go to some bright sky now. You can see now we're getting that sort of overexposed sky. If I do tap it, we can bring it back down. And again, if we go to the main camera again, high contrast clouds. Does address fairly quickly, but you can see it does blow out some of the highlights for a split second. But overall, perfectly usable camera here, and at this price point, you really can't complain. This is also the internal mics. Okay, so photos on the phone. Well, first of all, the 1x lens for me in daytime conditions is actually... I'm really pleased to report as well that the telephoto camera does have close focusing. You can see, I'll be honest, it's not the best. It is there and it is usable, but it's not the best. But again, we have to remember this is a budget device, and to even see it on a device at this price point, I'm all here for it. And you know, if you're careful with it, you can get some good results. Just don't push it too far on that zoom slider, because it's not going to come pretty. The phone does tend to really boost the shadows. You'll see that it takes a while after you've taken the image to post-process it. It takes ages because of the processor that it's using, but also it takes ages because it's spending so long raising the shadows on the images, and I just don't like it. I'd much rather like a little bit more contrast on those darker pictures, and it just doesn't seem to do that here. It tries to brighten them up, and when it brightens them up, you're left with a lot of smoothing as well as a lack of detail. Also, you can tell that the images are heavily processed. If you look at some of these macro shots, and as well as some of those foliage, sort of like leaves and grass and stuff in the images, you can see that it is heavily sort of sharpened up, or sort of looks almost artificially drawn. So I would like them to step back a little bit on their processing, but overall it does a good job. In low light conditions as well, details from that telephoto remain really good, better than some flagships. I'm looking at you, Samsung, or the Pixel, for example. In nighttime, their telephoto lenses are not that good. But yeah, this is not about that. This is about the Nothing phone. So back to the samples really, and yeah, again, colours as well. They're not over boosted at night. You can see it still looks relatively natural, and it's quite easy to go to that warmer tone. I mean, does it lack a bit of character? To be honest, yes, it does. But I'm not looking for that at this price point. I'm just looking for an image that does the job and that has a relatively good amount of detail throughout its lenses. The ultra wide, as I said earlier, is a disappointment, and don't even bother with it in nighttime conditions because it just doesn't come out very good at all. Main camera, you know, does the job perfectly fine, no complaints really, and that telephoto lens, star of the show for me. I would actually say, yeah, at a budget price point, this is one of the best cameras you can get. If they work on their processing a little bit, it'll be even better. Video wise as well, actually, yeah, really impressed with the video. You'll see earlier on some video samples so you can make your mind up. There's no 4K 60, but you know, you got 4K 30 on two of the lenses. It's just a shame that ultra wide can't support it 4K as well, because then all three lenses would have been able to do 4K 30. So slight missed opportunity there, but you know, the ultra wide lens isn't very good anyway, so I would just sort of avoid using that and concentrate on the other cameras. There should be a dedicated shorts video going on my channel with the camera app for the Nothing phone. So I'll give you a walk through the camera app. So I'm not going to do it in this video. It'll be a separate short video on the channel. So keep subscribed and look out for that one. But overall, you've got some sort of nice filter styles in there and stuff. But I'm not really a fan of the camera app. It's a bit bland. There's not enough features in there for me. Even, you know, the Honor camera app has a lot more features than this one does. So the cameras on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro are a real highlight for me, and it's a really good reason to buy this phone. So what's my final verdict on this Nothing Phone 3A Pro? Well, again, it's a great device at £450. You know, you can't do much better. If I am looking at weaknesses, for me, it's gonna be the screen brightness. It's a nice panel, but it's not super bright. It's bright enough and it's gonna do the job, but it's definitely not flagship level bright. Another weakness is definitely that ultra wide camera. And also the performance. That's the biggest problem here with this phone, is that Snapdragon 7S Gen 3 really doesn't have enough performance for most people, even on that budget range. Something like the Honor 400 Pro, which you can pick up on sale for around the same price, if not slightly higher. You are going to get better performance, and it's something that Nothing really has kind of missed out on this phone, is that performance. I'd much rather a generation of Snapdragon that's a couple of years old rather than going for this, you know, really sort of budget friendly Snapdragon option. You will find that it will, you know, stammer here and there, and you know, it has a unique design, but apart from that, it doesn't really stand out from the crowd. The Nothing OS isn't for me. The actual launcher and the home screen customization is nice, but the settings menu and stuff like that feels like options have just been bolted on rather than nicely integrated. So a great phone, and I would recommend it, but there is some definite room for improvement. I'd like to see an aluminium frame on this phone, a better ultra wide camera, and smoother performance would really go nicely with this. However, it is still one of my favourite smartphones of the year. So I hope you liked the video. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts below.